by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank to keep interest rates on hold. Dr Azar Jammine is the Chief Economist at Econometrix. Dr Jammine, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much.
I suppose you're one of many economists who are not surprised by the decision.
I wasn't at all surprised by the decision. What I was surprised by was the extent to which the Reserve Bank reduced its inflation forecasts. I expected them to reduce their growth forecast, but more than anything, that the quarterly projection model of the Reserve Bank is now talking about the likelihood of a rate cut by the beginning of next year. That is a marked change. And even more surprising was the fact that the decision to leave rates unchanged was 3-2, as close as that, which all points to a fairly significant increase in the likelihood that we will have an interest rate reduction within the next 9 months.
Okay, I mean, a classic economic theory, and I know very little about it, you're the expert, but you would think that the interest rate band, the target band, is between 3 and 6. We've got 3 and 6%. Inflation at the moment, CPI 4.4%, so bang in the middle. You'd think there's room for a cut now if the aim is to grow the economy, to give us a little bit of space to grow the economy. Why is there not a cut then?
I think first of all, there are certain indications that inflation will edge upwards over the remainder of the year. Electricity tariffs are one factor, possibly food price inflation accelerating, and also there have been signs more recently that producer prices are starting to accelerate, so there may be more of a pass-through of cost increases than we've had before. But above all of that is the intimation that the bank is scared of what's going on internationally with the trade war, and they are afraid that that could have ramifications in terms of weakening the rand significantly.
In other words, it's the usual story. It's not us, it's actually them. It's Japan and China.
It's very much Japan and China, yes, absolutely.
We can blame Britain too, right? There's room for that.
Absolutely.
So the bank expects economic growth of just 1% this year, and it's back to, I'm afraid, a perennial conversation over the last decade in South Africa about a lack of economic growth, the sort of fundamental weakness in the economy. And the governor, Lesetja Kganyago, making the point again that economic growth cannot be stimulated by monetary policy. It can't be done by the Reserve Bank. It's by reform and policy by government.
Without a doubt, and I agree 100% with what his views on that score. And we're in a situation now where we have a window of opportunity. If President Ramaphosa acts in the right way with his cabinet appointments and his State of the Nation address next month, and tries to convince South Africans that he's really committed to fighting corruption and state capture, that he's really committed to getting infrastructural investment going, cutting back on the public size and magnitude of the public service and the cabinet itself, I think you could suddenly start seeing a little more confidence starting to develop, and that could feed upon itself to create a more positive momentum. Everyone's hopes are lying on Ramaphosa. He's carrying a huge responsibility at the moment.
There was a little bit of, well, perhaps holding a breath yesterday. Tito Mboweni, I think I still call him governor, if not finance minister, but sort of finance minister for the moment. He was a little bit late for his swearing in. I think in the end he got sworn in with the members of parliament from the economic freedom fighters. I imagine a lot of people sort of breathed more easily once they saw him. I mean, is there an expectation in the market that he'll be the finance minister, or someone like him will be in the finance minister?
I think there is an expectation that someone of reasonable gravitas will become finance minister. I don't think everyone is sold on the idea of Mboweni necessarily being that person. There are quite a few other potential candidates, but it is a space that will be closely watched, and there is the hope that the new finance minister will be here to stay for quite a while to try and fix some of the disruptions that have been caused in the National Treasury by the continuous change of ministers of finance over the last few years.
We've seen a sort of profusion of economic cluster economic cluster ministries. So at the moment, as government is currently configured, and I think this is going to change, but you have the finance minister who makes some policy, the minister of economic development, minister of Department of Trade and Industry, and a minister of small business development. Are you expecting actually one or only two ministers in that cluster that might have more control and more coordination than what we've seen in the last 10 years?
I am fully expecting a rationalisation of the cabinet, and you've given the one example. There are several other examples of where the departments can be rationalised. That, together with the appointment of a presidential research policy unit, should enhance the cohesion with which government starts taking policies. Because one of the problems with having a proliferation of ministries is there's been so much pulling in different directions and a lack of coordination between policies of one ministry compared with the other. And I think that there is scope for improving that with a smaller cabinet and with a better policy research unit.
All right, if none of this happens, if the Reserve Bank predictions stay the course, I mean 1 percentage point growth this year, I think 2% growth of 2% in 2 years' time, that actually means South Africans are getting poorer, right? Individually, we're getting poorer.
You're absolutely correct. The population growth rate as a result of the victory in the fight against the mortality caused by HIV/AIDS the population growth rate is 1.6%. So anything below that means South Africans on average are getting poorer.
At this stage then, Finance Minister, obviously those clusters, I imagine the other ministries that people will be watching when we get the Cabinet announcement, I suppose, any time from Saturday afternoon, but probably through until Monday lunchtime, are probably the sort of key phases. I suppose also public enterprises will be the other portfolio to watch.
And that is the elephant in the room, namely especially Eskom, because if there's one reason why we're looking at 1% growth, and a downside to that possibly even, it's the whole situation with regard to electricity security and the way in which the costs of trying to fund the amelioration in that situation. So public enterprises is a crucial portfolio, but does it necessarily have to be managed by a Minister of Public Enterprises, or can it be managed from the centre?
Dr Azar Jammine, thank you very much indeed. The Chief Economist at Econometrix.